Good afternoon. I'm Dan Ross with 19 News, coming to you from our digital desk. We're about to take you to a Zoom news conference that has just gotten underway. This is in regards to House Bill 315. And more specifically, first of all, what House Bill 315 is the governor said that if a police department chooses to, they can charge anyone $75 an hour who requests body cam video. There's a lot of work that goes into that, redacting, editing by police departments. There is a max charge of $750. So with that in mind, Jazmir Tucker is the 15-year-old who was shot the night of Thanksgiving in Akron by police officers. As you can imagine, the family wanting that body cam video. And again, it is discretionary. It is up to every police department whether or not to charge that. The family of Jazmir Tucker very upset that they would have to pay for that video. Let's take a listen now. I believe this is the attorney for the family, and we are supposed to hear from Ashley Green, who is Jazmir Tucker's mother.
It's disingenuous at best for the governor to claim that this is about balancing costs and burden to law enforcement agencies, especially when you think about within the context that the cameras themselves, the technology required for those, the storage for that data, and other costs are already funded by the taxpayers and citizens of Ohio. So cities around the state, and even more so when we think about it in the context of budgeting, cities around the state continue to approve operating budgets of which police spending is regularly almost over 1/3 of million and billion-dollar budgets at the expense of resources that might actually help the public. For example, the government wants us to believe, for instance, in a city like Columbus, which I believe they're taking a look at their budget this evening, where they have an operating budget over $1 billion and it's regularly approved. And of that budget, over $300 million of that budget is typically allocated towards law enforcement or police. We now want the taxpayers to be charged up to $750 for information, which is aimed at holding those same police accountable. It's disingenuous when the governor says that this is about cost. And the reason why this is important is because body and dash cam footage is necessary. And it's necessary when it comes to uncovering the truth when it comes to law enforcement conduct for the community and civil rights victims. Governor DeWine's signature in this particular legislation, in particular, is a clear attack on transparency, access to truth, and access to justice. With that being said, I'll pass it to Attorney Rucker to have some thoughts as well.
Thank you, Attorney Gresham. You know, what we know is that the Public Records Law 149.43 of the Ohio Revised Code in Ohio is all about and was created for public access. Public access. And what the governor has done by signing this last-minute bill into law was excluded, diminished, and reduced public access. Why? What do we know about what he said was the reason why this, number one, was stuck into a bill at the last minute and why it was important for him to sign? Is because some of these departments are burdened by the extra costs that are required when individuals who are members of the public ask for information that we are as the public entitled to. But what we also know, based on that argument, is that once well, first of all, these people are paid for actually doing their jobs in recovering and producing this information. We're not talking about 1970 anymore. We're not talking about even 1990, where there's voluminous documents that have to be reviewed and retracted. We're talking about digital information. And what are we also talking about? That once there's a charge made, for instance, $750 for returning body cam footage on a particular case, and somebody else requested afterwards, does another $750 charge, is it justified? Because the work has already been done. All that's necessary is the push of a button. So now we're talking about being doubly compensated for what the public is already supposed to have access to. You know, from our perspective, when we review and evaluate a case and when we decide whether we're going to take it, we review public records. And many times the cases that we're involved with, there are multiple agencies and multiple officers involved. And so it can be prohibitive costly for us to do an accurate investigation to decide whether or not there's even a basis to pursue the case. The law was hastily drawn in, it was hastily signed, and for individuals who seek public information pursuant to a public law that was all about transparency and access, We believe that is a travesty and it is wrong.
Thanks, Fernand. With that being said, just want to introduce some of the family members we have here today. We're going to start with Dr. Shauna Barnett. For those of you who don't know, she's the sister of Andre Hill. And when we talk about this body camera footage, all these cases is important in, and none more so than Andre's case, in which the officer himself, Adam Coy, who's now convicted of the charges that were related to that, himself didn't know that his body camera footage was active. The camera footage was invaluable in that particular case. And just by way of details, Andre was killed in December of 2020, and again by a former officer, but now convicted Adam Coy. So I'll introduce Dr. Shauna Barnett.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns over it, because upon hearing it, I felt like it is a step backwards for transparency and accountability, because we need to see these things and know these things. And in order to see and know and to fix it, we have to be able to be present for that to happen. So honestly, I feel like it damages the public's trust, because it feels like the government is putting walls up and not wanting to have things exposed to them that needs to be exposed. And also, one of the other things someone said earlier about the cost is costing the government time, but look what it's costing us. If we don't have that, it's costing us the rights, justice, and it's costing a life. It cost my brother his life. So that's one of the reasons why Andre's law was put into effect, is to have these body cam footage on at all times. If we're not able to view the body footage, there's no point of having, or the body cam footage, there's no point in having the camera. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So we should be able to have this information readily available. I feel like it's also unfair to lower income communities, because not everybody can afford these kinds of fees. So really, when we get down to it, the people that turn out to need this information are the ones that are victimized, not the ones who have the means to the means to pay those fees. These are for marginalized communities that are hit the most, that are using these body cam footage to bring about the justice and to bring about to highlight the unfairness that these communities are getting. These are not happening in affluent neighborhoods. These are not happening to people who don't need this. So this is happening to the people that are in need of that. And it makes a journalist's job hard, because investigative journalists rely on this body cam footage to actually push this information out. And then also, it's a big problem for advocacy groups. We rely on this information to be put out there. We need transparency. We don't need cover up, because yes, it was an invaluable thing in Andre's case. Had that footage not been there, it would have spun a whole different scenario, because it could have been his word against ours and not what you see.
Thank you, Dr. Barnett. I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have anything else to say?
No, that's fine.
No? Okay. And I apologize. It looks like my connection may be a little unstable, so I'll try and move through this. Next up, we're going to introduce Shanae Ross, who's the wife of Kobe Ross, who died as the result of a reckless pursuit of another person by the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department here in the Montgomery County area in May of 2024. With that being said, Shanae, feel free to make some comments.
Yes, again, thank you. Hi. And thank you for having me. I think that what everyone is saying pretty much sums up everything that I wrote down. It's like Dr. B said, it's the trust. The way that the bill was passed, no one knew about it. I was actually looking up what a Christmas tree bill was, and it says they attach small, unrelated single issue amendments to a bill moving through the legislature. But it says attached small. I don't think that bill was small at all to me. Also, statistically, like Dr. B said, the people who are going to need the body cam videos, the areas that these are happening in, 9 times out of 10, they can't really afford groceries. So I read an article where I guess a gentleman brushed it off and said it's under $100. people can't afford that a lot of times. So I do think this is very important. Things need to change. For me, they had the street cams there, but from what I saw, things were cut off. So that body cam video is going to be valuable because I need to know what happened after, that street cam cut off. I need to know the response time. I need to know who they went after first, right? But that's all I really have to say. I just want to stand in for the people who maybe don't have a voice right now. And hopefully we can figure some things out.
Thank you, Shanae. With that being said, I'm gonna finally introduce, and then Attorney Rucker will introduce someone as well. Ashley Green. Those of you who are on from our Cleveland area, Akron area, know that Ashley is the mother of Jazmir Tucker, who was killed in November of this past year, tragically, by Akron police. She knows firsthand what the importance of this particular body camera footage is. And she knows how important it is to getting answers to the truth as to what has happened with her son. We continue to seek that information in her case as well. Ashley?
Yeah, so thank you all for having me. Body cam footage. The last time you know, trouble, doesn't have a record, and he was actually across the street from his brother's house. So, I feel like it's a slap in our face where we are taxpayers, just citizens that have rights, that we are being charged to have access to these when it's necessary. It's necessary for us to have things because not only should we be able to see, but we hold the people that work and the public to protect and serve us accountable. Like they were saying, like we trust them. And we should be able to have some type of respect. They should be able to have some type of honor and dignity. And, the vows that they took to be able to be here to protect and serve us. I feel like, it was done. And
Thank you, Ashley.
thank you.
At this time, I'll let Attorney Rucker introduce Mr. Lindsay. I think we need to unmute Attorney Rucker, if we could. Okay, I'll do my best to kind of jump in. I'm not sure what's going on with the technology, but there you go. There you go.
At this time, I'd like to thank you for that. I'd like to briefly introduce Mr. Eric Lindsay. A couple of years ago, Mr. Eric Lindsay was the subject of a very highly publicized incident involving Westchester Police Department. And it was the body cam access that allowed him, allowed the world truly to see the actual engagement. Mr. Lindsay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by saying, Dr. Barnett, Ms. Ross, and Ms. Green, my condolences for your losses. Dr. Barnett mentioned transparency. And to me, that's what this means. We pay the salaries of these police officers. We pay for their equipment. And now they're charging us, or now they want to charge us for the for what this equipment actually captures in the course of their duties. And I think it's wrong, like everybody else does. So that's really all that I'm going to say about that. I'm really bound by a settlement agreement to say anything that personally happened in my case. But as Attorney Rucker said, it was key. The body cam was key for my case.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Attorney Gresham.
Sure. Sorry, some of my technology is pausing on me here. So with that being said, we want to open it up to questions either to the attorneys or the family members as well, and we'll do our best to address those questions. Thank you. I think we have a hand raised from Ms. Aline. There we go.
Can you guys hear me?
We can. I can.
Thank you all so much. I just wanted to ask, and anybody can jump in. We're here in Columbus. Are you guys asking the governor for a direct repeal of this law? Can you kind of walk us through what you want to see done?
Yeah, I mean, procedurally, obviously, we'll leave that to the legislators on how they go about doing that. But candidly, we believe this is it's a bad law. It doesn't need to be in place. Whatever needs to take place in order for it to no longer exist, that is what we're asking. That's what we would ultimately be requesting. That's the position that we take as civil rights lawyers in this state. Fanon?
No, I agree. Public access should mean public access, not impediments to public access. And to echo what Attorney Gresham said, this law was hastily and not well thought out, hastily drafted, passed, and not well thought out. And we believe that the legislatures would do well to undo it, or certainly to modify it in a significant way to restore public access and transparency.
Thank you.
This is Tino from Fox 8 in Cleveland. I had a hard time hearing Ashley's remarks. The audio was choppy and cutting out. I don't know if we can maybe give her a second chance to restate what she was saying, because the audio was too poor, unfortunately.
Yeah, and we apologize for the technology. Ashley, if you feel comfortable enough going through your statements, if not, I think we can summarize her statements in saying that, and Ashley, I'm not trying to speak out of context, but she's echoing what the rest of the family members have said, is that, especially in Jazmir's case in particular, and I can speak to this particular aspect, we've got the officer's story, and then we have the truth. Unfortunately, we have body camera footage that shows certain things in Jazmir's case in particular that have helped us start to piece together the actual story of what occurred and tell us a story of the aggressiveness of that particular police department in Akron. So I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, Ashley, necessarily with respect to what you said, but I'll just generally say that she echoed what the family member said as well.
This is David Winter from CBS Cincinnati, Local 12. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. This could be a question to anyone. I have two questions, actually. The first one is, what do you say to police departments that say they are just overtaxed and they cannot police? They say they cannot police properly if their people are being used to look up video and record video and redact video and send out video.
Yeah, I would say candidly, that's a tough perspective for me to swallow and accept. In every major city in this particular state of Ohio, there's significant resources that are allocated towards these police departments. And whether it be Cincinnati, whether it be Columbus, whether it be Akron, whether it be Dayton, there are millions of dollars that are allocated towards law enforcement. The least they can do is put together body camera footage, of which the taxpayers are already paying for, and get that to the public. So they have the ability to review these officers' conducts and make sure that we have significant transparency. And I'll be candid, I have very little sympathy for that particular perspective when it comes to law enforcement complaining about having to put together records because of their conduct. If they don't want the public looking into their conduct, stop shooting people.
And let's be also, oh, please, sorry.
I'm sorry. If you want to answer that, go ahead.
Yeah, so the other truth about it is we're promoting the continued access of these records and these body cams by the public. What happens when a lawsuit is filed? We get that information and they have to hire a lawyer in order to provide that information to us and to defend the action that we file. What happens when a criminal case happens and it occurs involving something where body cam footage and motor vehicle recordings are the subject. The defendants are entitled to that information in the same way. So the idea that somehow they're not required to continue to turn over this information because it's taxing or because it's difficult or voluminous, whether we get it here or we get it in litigation or we get it in the defense of a person who's accused of a crime, they are still required to turn over that information. It's public information, and the access to it is what we're talking about.
The other question I had was related to what about police departments, for instance, that will only release video for free if it benefits them? So saving a cat from a tree, pushing a car off train tracks, but will charge perhaps if the video in some way does not benefit them.
Attorney Worker, I didn't hear the whole question. My internet went out. I'll let you answer that one if possible.
Yeah, we're talking about the discretion of when and under what circumstances they may decide that it's a good idea to charge. You know, one of the things in the bill is that this provides police departments the option of charging that $75 an hour up to $750 per video. What we would hope on two levels. First of all, that police departments disregard and say, well, thanks so much, Governor, for giving us that opportunity, but we're going to continue to do what we believe is best for transparency and access. The second thing, of course, as we've suggested, is that the law be adjusted or be repealed so that this is not the case and that option is not derived. But you ask, what happens when the police department says, well, we're not going to freely or voluntarily turn over video that may show us in a bad light, but we will voluntarily show us in a good light doing something that is beneficial or is a good, it gives us some good accolades. We would hope that such a arbitrary determination of when and under what circumstances to provide video would not be made by any department, but I can suggest to you that it would be a huge challenge if we found out that someone was.
Hey, this is George Shilcock with WOSU. I think like other newsrooms in the state, we've been checking with our local police departments to ask how they plan to implement this policy. So far, none have really said how they plan to do so. I want to ask if you two, as attorneys, have heard from any police departments yet on what policies they will enact. And really, I also wanted to ask how many you expect to change their policies instead of offering these records for free to start charging for them.
So let's put this into perspective. First of all, I will offer to you that I can say that in our office, in the cases we've worked on since the law was passed in the past couple of weeks, we have not received any notice that they intend to charge. But then again, we've only sent out a few requests since that has happened. And so we haven't gotten an invoice yet. The other part, let's put this into perspective. We have 88 counties in Ohio. In each of those 88 counties, in the larger counties, we have upwards of 50 jurisdictions in each of those counties with police departments. So we're talking about a potential of a few, almost 1,000 potential police jurisdictions that we're talking about in the state of Ohio where this could happen. There's no way we've heard from all of them, but we know that they have the ability under this law, and we're trying to address that before any of them accept it in their policies that this is what they're going to do.
Hi, this is Derek Kreider with the Akron Beacon Journal, and this question is for Mrs. Barnett, Mrs. Green, Mrs. Ross, and Mr. Lindsay. I just wanted to make sure that I got the characterization of your comments correct. If I'm hearing you right, all of you believe that this law is a way for law enforcement to avoid transparency and accountability. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes, I'd like to think so.
Hi, Gabby Hart with Cleveland 19 News here. Wanted to ask, we saw the autopsy results come out yesterday. We did get that statement from you, but would love to hear from Mrs. Green as well as attorneys just about your reaction to those autopsy results, maybe even how it ties into this new law, any statement Mrs. Green might have, and then an attorney?
Ashley.
The autopsy report was traumatized. And with the body cam footage, it basically clarified that my son was not a threat, that he was running away from the officer. And my son was gunned down with a rifle, shot in his back. So very important because, anyone can say anything, and I wasn't there. I don't think anyone else here was there, but without that, anybody could and possibly still can make up any type of lies they want to. So it's very important that we have that.
And with respect, excuse me. And with respect to the autopsy findings, we just stand by the statement that we made as a firm and representing Ms. Green. The autopsy findings confirm what we already knew, is that this was an ultra aggressive tactic that was utilized by the Akron Police Department. Jazmir was shot in the back, and that's what we can confirm at this time. We've yet to hear any version of what happened from the officers, because at this time they failed to make any statement whatsoever with respect to what actually occurred.
Haley Olivas with Channel 5 here. In previous reporting, the governor has said prior to this law that providing camera footage, especially from a small police department, can be a quote, unfounded or unfunded burden. So when you hear that simply somebody is saying to provide that first person point of view can be described as a burden, what's your response? And then that's open to anybody.
Yeah, it's hard for me to accept that particular perspective, considering the resources that are generally poured into these departments. We understand that some departments don't have the same level of resources, but the reality is this is about the officer's conduct. If there wasn't questionable conduct, then we wouldn't be talking about getting this camera footage. So if these police departments were acting the way they should be acting, we wouldn't be requesting this footage, but we are because of the culture of policing in this state, whether it's a small or a large department.
Dan DeRose with 19 News. As it looks like the questions are winding down for this news conference, it's really focused around House Bill 315. This was signed by the governor just as we entered into the new year. What it says is that a department can use discretion on whether or not they charge for body cam video. They can charge up to $75 an hour, up to a total of $750. That can be a hardship for several people, as you might imagine. And that is the point these attorneys are making, is that especially in circumstances where that video is going to be needed, does a family have that kind of resource to go out and buy that video? But I want to be very clear, it is not required, it is not mandatory, it is discretionary. And you heard the attorneys say they fear that police departments will be discretionary when it doesn't help their case. If the body cam video is damning, they won't want that to get out, and then they will charge that up to $750. That's the accusation being made by the attorneys that you have just heard. As you saw, Gabby Hart was on the call. She did ask a question and get an answer from Jazmir Tucker's mother. Unfortunately, clearly her connection on Zoom was not very good at all. You could not understand a lot of what she had to say, but she did ask about the release of the autopsy report yesterday, and I believe, because she cut out, that she said it was traumatizing, finding out that Jazmir had been shot in the back at some portion of that shooting. We'll have much more on this coming up in our evening newscast that start at 3 o'clock when we start 3.5 hours of news and weather on Channel 19. I'm Dan DeRose. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV